What's up guys, Brian here with BPS Customs. For a couple months now, I've been working on a project with EVGA, AlphaCool, and Be Quiet that I've teased on social media a couple times, but I've never actually given any significant details about. Well, today that's going to change. We're going to take our first look at Project Sunrise. Okay, so before we get into the details about this build and all the parts behind me, which I'm going to run through in a minute, I wanted to give a huge thank you and recognize the sponsors for this project, without whom this would not have been possible. First, EVGA has provided us with the case, as well as the power supply and motherboard that we're going to be using here. Second, when I realized I wanted to do a full custom water cooling loop, I reached out to AlphaCool, explained the project to them, talked about what I was thinking, how I wanted to do it, and they were on board right away. They've been awesome to work with, and they provided us with all of the water cooling components we're going to be using here. Third, Be Quiet has provided us with all of the case fans we're going to be using here, including all of the radiator fans. And fourth, somebody who I've worked with quite a bit over the past year or so, Joe from Modders Inc. is providing us with all of our custom cabling that we need for this build. So once again, thank you guys so much. Without you, this would not have been possible. I'm putting links to everybody's website down in the video description. Please go check them out if you guys need any of these parts that you see here. Alright, so I guess without further ado, we should really talk about what this system is going to be. Well, I did have the concept for this build a couple months ago, and I've been kind of trying to work it out in my head as far as how I wanted to do it. Now, as things have kind of progressed and I've talked to my sponsors and talked to some other people about how I should configure some things, it's kind of become a little more clear how I wanted to do this, because I wanted to do the Sunrise theme, and doing so meant certain color components have to go in certain places. I know this may seem a little confusing, but it'll become clearer once we get into the build itself. So once I finally worked the concept out and got it nailed down as far as how I wanted to do it, I went about obtaining the components. We're going to go with a GTX 1070 SLI setup on the Z170 platform. I think this is going to provide us with a really good amount of power, and the system is going to be awesome to look at. So let's get into the parts. I'm going to take you back there. We're going to get a close-up look at what exactly we're going to be working with, and then we'll start the build. This is probably going to be a 3 or even maybe 4-part build process. This is not a short and quick build. So I'm sorry to everybody who doesn't like multiple part videos, but hey, get subscribed to the channel and you'll see the rest. All right, let's get to it. All right, so let's start at the start. We got all the way on the left, we have all of our case fans, like I said, provided by Be Quiet. We're going to use all Silent Wings 3 fans. We're using both 120 and 140 millimeter depending on what we need. We're going to have some exhaust fans. We're going to have some radiator fans. They're all going to be Quiet. I actually have some more of these on the other side of the room just in case we need them. Like I said, this is going to be a Z170 build, so we're going to put the 6700K inside the EVGA Z170 classified K motherboard. I reviewed this board and it's awesome. It looks great and it overclocks like crazy. So I can't wait to get this in a water-cooled build and see what this thing can really do. Alright, so moving on to graphics cards. Like I said, we're going to be doing an SLI setup. We have two GTX 1070s here. Now, one of them is from EVGA and it's the superclocked version, and one of them is from NVIDIA and it's the Founders Edition 1070. They both use the same Founders Edition PCB. They both use the same power delivery, so the same water blocks can be used on both of them. They're going to look identical once all the coolers are stripped off of them. For memory, we have two kits of Corsair Vengeance LPX. Each kit is 2x8, so we're going to have 32 gigs memory total in our build. For storage, our main drive is going to be the Patriot Ignite 480 gigabyte SSD, and then we're going to be running two OCZ Trion 150s in RAID 0 for our mass storage drive. So for power, we're going to use EVGA's Supernova 850P2. This is a platinum rated 850 watt power supply. It's going to be great for our needs. And then we move on over here. Now this is a lot of, but not all of, the water cooling stuff that we're going to be using for this build. Starting in the back, this is a 280 millimeter cross flow radiator from AlphaCool. Now this is a new design where we have the inlet and outlet actually on separate ends of the radiator, so that you could have it going in one end and then out the other end. You don't have to route the tubing all the way back to the same spot each time. This is a more standard, more traditional 360 millimeter radiator. Here we have our two GTX 1070 water blocks. They're actually the same water blocks as the GTX 1080s. The PCB design is actually the same on both cards. Here we have our Nexo CPU cooler. Here is the pump we're going to be using, which is a Lang DDC 310, which has a nice, clear, plexi top. This is our reservoir. It's kind of small, but I wanted it to be small for a very specific reason, and I hope that'll become obvious as we start working on this build. And then here is our SLI bridge. Now, this right here is the tubing we're going to be using. I don't know if you guys could see, but it says Alpha Cool hard tube on it. And usually what this means is PETG or acrylic. Well, not in this case. This is black brass. And this is what we're going to be using for the entire build. Now, I'll be honest with you, I've never worked with black brass before, but I've been playing around with it since I've had it here. It cuts, honestly, a lot easier than I thought it would, and I think it's going to look awesome in our case. It looks a little bit brighter on camera as I'm looking at the viewfinder than it does in real life. This is actually pretty dark material, but it's very shiny, and it's going to keep the entire look of the inside of the case very subdued and dark until we get to the part of the case that we want to be lit. So working with this tube is going to be very interesting, and honestly, we'll see how it goes because I don't know for sure. Those are all the components. What I want to do is I want to break down this case. This is the DG86 by EVGA. Once we get it broken down, because it's quite large, it'll be a lot easier to try to figure out exactly where things are going to go. I want to mount the motherboard. I want to get the blocks on the GPUs, and then I want to have them both installed in the case. And that way we can try to figure out how we're going to route our tubing. And that's probably as far as we're going to go for today. So let's start breaking everything down, get some stuff installed in this case, and get moving on this project. Okay, so we got the block installed on the motherboard, we got the two blocks installed on the GPU, and we got the motherboard installed in the case. Look how much room there is in this case. This is a, admittedly not eATX board, but it is a full-sized ATX motherboard, and it looks tiny inside of this enormous case. So we're gonna have to find some creative ways to utilize this space over here, and also this space down here, just in the interest of not having this entire project look like a giant cavernous empty area. But I think we could do it. I have confidence in me, I suppose. So we're gonna move on. I'm gonna get the graphics cards in here and we can see what kind of a layout we could look into doing with the tubing. All right, so the graphics cards are now in. Unfortunately, we do have to use the top two PCIe slots because those are the ones that run at times 16 and also by 8. So if we move them down at all, those are running at by 4, and it's not going to work for our purposes.
I also did have to do a little bit of let's call this custom modding. I had to remove a piece of this shroud over here, the one all the way to the left, because it wouldn't allow me to mount the top graphics card without running into the bottom of the shroud. So I just actually cut it off. And this is actually still mounted in here by the top screw, so it should be fine. But this is the way we look right now, and I'm wondering if I should stop today or keep going. And I'm going to keep going. So I'm going to put some radiators in. I think maybe then we'll stop there. All right, so I went a little bit further than I actually thought I was going to. We got the top mounted radiator in. We got the front mounted radiator in. Right there. And we also got the reservoir mounted. Now, like I said, this is a small reservoir in relation to the size of this case. But there's a reason for that. And it has to do with the name and what I'm planning on doing with the setup. Now, I can always change it if I set it up and it looks empty or inappropriately sized or something like that. I could always go with, you know, something a little bit bigger. And let me get in here a little closer and we'll do a quick scan across. But yeah, we could always make this a little bit bigger if I wanted it to. But I think this looks pretty good so far. And gotta look at these fans up here. These would be quiet Silent Wings 3s. And then we got, there we go, the front radiator mounted as well. And on camera, actually, this looks a little crooked, but it is not. Maybe it's just the angle I have it at. But here we go. This is it. This is where we're going to stop for today. I actually really need to get the cables in because I want to do the cabling before I do anything with the pipes. So I'm gonna have to wait a few days for that to come in. Those should be in soon. But this is where we're gonna stop. This is part one, and you know, like I said, we're gonna be using the black brass tubing. So I'm anxious to get to part two. And I hope you guys are too. So get subscribed to the channel, and hopefully you won't miss any of it. And this is it. Talk to you later.